The character of Galen Merrick Starkiller has often been described and criticized for being bland and a power fantasy, and while in some respects I can see this to be true as he is obviously a video game character, Galen Merrick is interesting to me for another very important reason, one that includes Darth Vader. Darth Vader clearly is highly motivated by Galen Merrick, so much so that he becomes obsessed with him. We learn in the second Force Unleashed novelization that Darth Vader has attempted to clone Galen Merrick over 1,000 times. In fact, the clone that you play as in the Force Unleashed 2 is clone 1138. After Galen Merrick was killed giving his life for the movement that would one day become the Rebellion, we learned that Darth Vader secretly snuck his body off of the first Death Star and had it frozen. We then learn that Darth Vader quickly went to work on Kamino directly to attempt to clone the body of Galen Merrick. This is highly unusual for someone like Darth Vader, pulling together all of these resources on Kamino in secret, presumably away from the Emperor, and doing everything in his might possible to resurrect this once dark Jedi turned light side wielder. So what exactly was there about Galen Merrick that Darth Vader was so obsessed with? Why did Darth Vader connect so heavily with the child? And why did Darth Vader view this as the only way to break the chains that the Emperor was holding? Well, today, my friends, I wanted to analyze Lord Vader's opinions on Galen Merrick and why he became obsessed with the boy. Why Galen Merrick represented something new to Darth Vader that one day Luke would also come to represent. Over the course of both Force Unleashed novels, something becomes very clear about Galen Merrick. That is, that he is exceptionally rare as a Force wielder. The power level of Galen Merrick does not seem to be cosmically gifted like the powers of one Anakin Skywalker. Instead, his powers appear to be a sort of anomaly through the Force. Individuals with this much power and attunement to the Force are exceptionally rare. So rare, in fact, that two of the other most powerful Force-sensitive individuals, being Yoda and Palpatine, were born hundreds of years apart from one another. But as we would come to learn by the end of the first Force Unleashed novel and game, Galen Merrick even has a midichlorian count and an attunement to the Force higher than Yoda, and one that competes directly with Darth Sidious. This is generationally gifted in the Force, and it makes sense as to why the Emperor and Vader would become so fascinated with this Force anomaly that was Starkiller, somebody that was born of two Jedi who formed a romantic attachment. His father, Kento Merrick, and Mali renounced their allegiances to the Jedi Order and would marry in secret. After this, they would eventually be found out and would be banished from the Jedi Order, eventually finding refuge on the world of Kashyyyk when Order 66 would break out. But because they were no longer a part of the Jedi Archive's records, or at least the surface level records, they were undetected for nearly a decade, until Lord Vader would knock on their door. When Lord Vader arrived on Kashyyyk, though, he sent someone extremely powerful, as Kento Merrick revealed that his wife had been killed, murdered by Trandoshan slavers when she attempted to stop them from enslaving a Wookiee population. It is believed that this event, and Mali Merrick taking up arms against the slavers, that it was the Trandoshans that would leak the presence of the Jedi on Kashyyyk. When Vader faced down Kento, he sensed someone far more powerful nearby. And while Vader incorrectly assumed this to be the Jedi's master, it was soon revealed that it was Galen Merrick that Vader had sensed all along. Somebody with the aptitude and command over the Force that in the Force itself, Vader believed them to be a Jedi Master. At the time, one of the few Jedi Masters who managed to evade the Purge. Vader would obviously kill Kento and then take Galen Merrick as his secret apprentice. But the fascination doesn't actually start here. Vader believes that he can use Galen to eventually overthrow the Emperor, and although Vader betrays Galen Merrick more than once, by the end of the game and in the novel, it is made very clear what Vader's original plan was. Galen Merrick is so astoundingly powerful in the Force that Vader believes that with his help, they could in fact destroy the Emperor. Whether or not this is true is left up for debate. But the fascination doesn't end here. Darth Vader literally becomes obsessed with Galen Merrick after his death. To Darth Vader, we have seen him attempt to overthrow Emperor Palpatine many different ways in both Legends and canon, but never have we seen him gone so far out of his way to help save one young boy's life, one Force wielder's life, and attempt to recreate that power to destroy the Emperor. That is Galen Merrick, Starkiller. After Galen Merrick was killed, Darth Vader began a secret cloning operation on Kamino. Darth Vader most notably was against attempting to clone his own limbs in a video that we'll be exploring in a few days. However, Darth Vader would go to the Kaminoans and help them achieve the impossible, to bestow force sensitivity into an individual, but not just any individual, to clone Galen Marek. The power that Darth Vader saw in Galen Marek was so extreme that he believed that it was enough to eclipse the Emperor. Again, a force wielder arriving of this magnitude in the lore is extremely rare and is generational. The only individual at the time that would hold more potential in the Force than Galen Marek would have been Luke Skywalker. On Kamino, over several years, Darth Vader would attempt to clone Galen Marek 1,139 times. There were 2 fully successful clones. However, one of the clones would be drawn towards the light side of the Force as the original Galen Marek had been, and this is where things get very interesting. Darth Vader ran into a major problem in the cloning process, that being that although many of the clones did show aptitudes with the Force and some Force sensitivity, they would eventually be drawn to the light side and then drawn insane by past memories of Starkiller. This was a problem, as Darth Vader needed the training of Galen Marek and Starkiller to accelerate extremely quickly if he were to stand any chance against the Emperor, and the only way to access those memories was to implant the memories of the original Galen Marek on these clones. And with this, all of the training in the dark side, all of the moments where Galen Marek was starved for weeks on end and forced to rely only on what the Force would grant him, all of his hatred, and his specialization in the lightsaber and lightsaber forms would all be granted onto these clones. But Darth Vader could not figure out how to stop the memories of Juno and the memories of the light side from infecting the clone bodies, until we get to clone number 1139. Darth Vader finally invented his perfect apprentice, appropriately named only in the game and in the novel as the Dark Apprentice. It is here revealed that Darth Vader went a separate way. He withheld a lot of the key points of Galen Marek's original life away from this clone for long periods of time. First, Darth Vader would force this clone to gorge on the powers of the dark side and the dark side alone. But rather than portray the past memories of Galen Marek as a pull to the light, Vader would take a lesson from his own turn to the dark side of the Force, and presented this to the clone as weakness. He showed the clone how much weaker Galen Marek had become when he had formed these attachments, and when Vader had finally sensed that the clone had no feelings towards his past life, Vader decided to show him the ultimate test. The Dark Apprentice said he felt nothing except for hatred for his old life and his old weakness, disgust for his failings, how he gave up a place to rule the galaxy because of love and because of the light side. But now, he felt a great sense of pride. He had fully engaged in the dark side completely now, and had risen above these past mistakes. He was absolutely disgusted with the past decisions of the old Galens, and the Dark Apprentice was truly born. But with this, why was Darth Vader so obsessed? Why did Darth Vader spend trillions upon trillions of credits presumably to attempt to perfectly clone Galen? The answer is this dark clone was one of the only things that Darth Vader had ever seen truly test the power of Sidious 1-to-1. Before Galen Marek presented himself in the galaxy, Darth Vader had resigned himself to the role of the servant and of the slave. And it was not until the dark side of the Force presented him this gift in this young child that Vader believed the power of the Emperor could ever be questioned. Galen Marek is literally the evil side of the coin of Luke Skywalker. It pulls on Darth Vader's darker half, as Luke would pull on Anakin Skywalker and his lighter half. All of this is actually intentional as well, as the writers wanted to present a character in Galen Marek that was a hypothetical. What would happen if Luke Skywalker was born in the dark side of the Force and was trained by Vader since birth? Not only is Galen Marek on a power level similar to the likes of Luke Skywalker, but also on an emotional level to Darth Vader. To Darth Vader, Galen Marek represents the idea of ruling the galaxy that Vader was born off of and what Anakin gorged himself off of in Revenge of the Sith. While Luke calls to the lighter part of the Vader persona in Anakin and speaks to a brighter future, Galen Marek speaks to that innate desire within Darth Vader before he was a slave to his injuries and before he was a slave to Palpatine. To call Starkiller a power fantasy is accurate. But to throw him away as this, and only this, I believe, is not looking at the greater importance of the character. When talking about the character of Galen Marek, it's hard not to get engrossed in his extreme powers in the dark side. But when we take a step further and look at what this does to characters like Palpatine and Vader, as well as what it means for Starkiller himself, the character is opened up to us on a much greater and a grander level. Galen Marek is the antithesis of a Luke Skywalker Anakin to Darth Vader. He represents everything that Vader wants as a Sith Lord, to rule the galaxy, and because of that, this anchors him against Palpatine, the same way that Luke would later anchor Vader against Palpatine, but in the light side of the Force. Not only is Galen Marek Starkiller a counter to Luke in terms of their grand power in the Force and their abilities within the Force, but his very character is as well in the relationship that he has with Vader. And that is why a Vader at this point who has resigned himself to his fate as the Emperor's lapdog is finally shaken out of his chains for a moment when he senses the power of the young Starkiller. The same way that those chains are shaken when he realizes that he has a son in Luke. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on our analysis on the character of Galen Marek Starkiller? And what are your thoughts on Starkiller's importance to the lore and to the importance of Darth Vader? Do you believe that these are the reasons why Vader became so utterly obsessed with the powers and abilities of Galen? Thank you as always, my friends, so much for visiting the channel and the archives today, and may the Force be with you.